Hello everyone, I'm Gary Waterman, a former UK Police Constable. Welcome to part 2 of my Department of Work and Pensions research document. Please verify and corroborate this information. All I've done is screenshot the information from Companies House and other internet-based resources and pasted them into a document. You can get this document and any others that I've produced within my public document file. You can email me at garythetruthsetsuSfree@gmail.com, or you can go on to my Telegram channel, which is Gary the Truth Sets Us Free, or my YouTube channel, Gary Truth Sets Us Free, and you'll be able to get these documents. We're on page 16 and we're looking at banks, and we have the Distribution Finance Capital Holdings PLC company that was incorporated on the right. You can see at the same year as the outbreak, the infamous outbreak. On the incorporation document for that company, you have the London Law Agency as the statement of compliance. Well, that's a fraudulent entity company, so there is no accountability and liability, and the government would absolutely have known that. The whole company system becomes fraudulent when you have the fraudulent entity companies attached to the documents. On the right here, the same director links to DF Capital Bank Limited, and that person was appointed to them in 2022 as I was making the inquiries within my company, where I acquired the forged bank documents. On the left, DF Capital Bank. On the overview page, if we look into it, you'll see it had an original name of Distribution Finance Capital Limited. Obviously, distribution of finances, whether that be to the defrauded amount of money to those involved, who knows? But here's that company. On the incorporation document, it's a very important one. It's got companies made simple. That is a fraudulent entity company linked to the World Trade Center disaster, and the removal of a name from an incorporation document by our governments to try, it appears, to hide a connection between the World Trade Center disaster, the UK governments, and international child trafficking, and a connection to the paedophile information exchange, all being linked. Very serious crime and fraud indeed. On the right there, the same director is linked to Hope FM Ministries Limited. There's various Hope companies that I'm finding now, and there's a reason that I'm showing those. That will be coming out later. On the left, they're linked to Provident Financial Management Services Limited. Now let's have a look into that company. And you can see they dissolved on the left there in 2024 in October, as I'm exposing the fraud, even though they were started in 1937. So a very old company, and then suddenly they have dissolved as this is all being exposed, because they're worrying, and so they should be. And people, it is over. Their reign of terror is over, everybody. Very, very soon indeed. On the right here, you can see the previous names that it had. It was HT Greenwood Limited from 1937, and they changed their company name in 2000 in October, just under a year before the World Trade Center disaster. And of course, it's only just dissolved, so it hasn't changed its name again. On the incorporation document on the bottom left, you can see Jordan and Sons Limited, so it's fraudulent. That is also the company, remember, linked to the company where I had acquired forged Lloyd's bank documents. Into the St Andrews company on the right, we have Andrew Lee, and he is connected on the right here. He's got 61 companies, but one of them on the right there you can see is Solihull Masonic Temple Limited. And he resigned from that in 2024. And of course, the evidence suggests that the Freemasons are running this whole show, this complete corruption and victimization, exploitation of the masses, but in particular the poor children. And that there is potentially a Luciferian cult at the top of this, which would make sense with all of the evil that we are seeing and the corruption that is now being exposed via this system of fraud. On the left here, we have within St Andrews, we have Vivian McVie, a doctor, appointed in September 2022, as I'm making inquiries within my company, and they're all panicking, trying to cover it all up and hide it, and eventually they remove me as a director, thinking that'll be the end of it. Oh, they made a mistake there. Well, that director is linked to, on the right there, Virgin Care Practices Limited, presumably part of the Virgin Foundation companies. Well, Richard Branson has been named in the court papers for the Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein connected case. On the left, one of the pages of the incorporation document for Virgin Care Limited has an address of Linton House, Tavistock Square, London. Very similar to an address that is used throughout the fraud and is very relevant. This one in particular, CAPB Limited, Tavistock House, South Tavistock Square, London. And that links to the Fleming Company, Robert Fleming and Co. Limited. And within my company, the person that that made a proposal to have me removed as a director when I was refusing to file the forged bank documents is Deborah Fleming, and links to the Fleming family, her husband John Fleming, and then they link through to Hollywood via Ian Fleming and the James Bond books and movies, intelligence agencies, but also international banking fraud via JP Morgan, and the pharmaceutical industries, and also the world's energy supply. And you can see they changed the name here in July 2001. That's the same month that Larry Silverstein purchased the lease for the World Trade Center building, the only time it ever changed hands in its 31 years history. And then it changed its name to CA Premier Banking Limited. Well, that stands for Cater Allen, which is an offshore part of Santander. And interestingly, went into a Santander bank recently, and they've tried putting a marker against my record saying I'm suffering from mental health issues and making these allegations. So I now have a formal complaint in relation to Santander, and I will be exposing them as well because they link to this international government fraud. Into St Andrews on the right, you can see you have Nigel Blackham, and he links to St Andrews Group of Hospitals Limited. Not just a single hospital, St Andrews Group of Hospitals Limited. Okay? And they are illegal. They're fraudulent entities. So all of those hospitals that are part of that group would have been trading illegally. On the right here, you can see you've got Swifting Corporations, and on the left, Jordan's Limited. And of course, this enables them to defraud the masses through the healthcare system and provides a motive for them to keep producing health problems for the public so that they can defraud the public even more through the healthcare sector. St Andrews on the right, you have Nigel Alcock, links to Centrica Energy Trading Limited. Remember, we just mentioned the energy trading, the energy industry. And here we are, we have Centrica Energy Trading Limited. Centrica has already featured throughout the fraud and has fraudulent entity companies as well. And you can see on the right here that it has an address of 30 Finsbury Square that features throughout the fraud if you see my other documents. On the left, the company dissolved on 29th of June 2023 as I'm exposing the fraud. And so they should be. They are... oh my goodness, I mean, words can't explain what I think of these people, but I'm very sorry for them, that's for sure, for how low they have stooped. On the left here, you have, even though it was incorporated in 1993, it's just dissolved last year. And on the overview page, you can see the bottom right-hand corner, after its first name of Accord Power Limited, it changed its name in November 2001, 2 months after the World Trade Center disaster. On the incorporation document, bottom left, you have ICC. That links to the Maxwell families, who, as we know, are involved in very sinister activities. Ghislaine Maxwell, Father Robert. And then we have a link, this is interesting, bearing in mind we're talking about child trafficking and sexual abuse, etc. And immorality, we have Leslie Boswell, links to the Association for Sexual Treatment of Sexual Addiction and Compulsivity Limited. Within that company, if I can get that screen to go, on the right, Ian Baker links to another similar company, Sex Addiction and Psychosexual Therapy Services Limited. On the right, Don Serrat, oh, I've got that twice, links to a children's company, LifeWorks Children's Foundation. So we have international government fraud linking to Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell. Then we have a sex addiction company linked to, very quickly, to a children's foundation. That tells you enough, doesn't it? This system has to come down. Can you see what's happening here? Now, on the incorporation document for that children's company, you have Jordan's Limited. You can't quite see it at the top there under that red liner. The box isn't very well placed, but it's Jordan's Limited. You can see underneath www.jordans.co.uk. Well, that's linked to the international fraud and child trafficking. On the left-hand side, back into the Association of Sexual Addiction or whatever it was, we have Tommy Sylvester. Links to the Brighter Teaching Limited. So now we have a link via the the Maxwells to children's company, sex addiction, and now a teaching company. You can see where this is all going, guys, and why we've got all of these issues now. On the left here, you have Paul Tidy within that company, links to Canalside Management Company Limited. So here's Canalside Management Company. Remember, management companies and real estate is a huge part of this. That's how I started finding out about it, through my company that was part of real estate, which was called Expoor Manor Freehold Limited. And they're a fraudulent company, this one. You can see Swift Incorporations on the right and Jordan's Limited on the left there on their incorporations. Into Canalside, on the right there, you have Kevin Maron is part of, on the right here now, we're looking at Kevin, Elite Homes Group Limited. And I've just put a screenshot from my emails, because I have, since I've been exposing this, I've been getting emails of Elite Property. Okay, now I've come across Elite Properties. Now, I've never actually signed up or emailed anybody to do with anything Elite, and here we are. So I know my emails have been infiltrated before. I'm not saying that's happening with this, but I don't think it's a coincidence. So Elite Homes, here we are. Any of you that don't know, these people think they're better than everybody else. They call themselves the elite. They're far below anybody else. I've never known such criminality and depravity in my life, such sinful nature. All my 18 years of policing, I have never known such degradation and sinful behaviour. So they are far from elite. But here we are. We have Elite Homes Group Limited on the left. And they are also fraudulent. You can see I haven't put the box very well. It should be on the bit below. Swift Incorporations. And look at the original company name. Young Space Limited. Young Space. On the left, Swift Incorporation we've got, and Jordan's and Sons on the left. Back into the NHS Confederation now. So right back to the beginning, where we were looking at the beginning of the document, linking to the head of the DWP. We have Susan Slipman here, is linked to Thames Water Utilities Limited. Now, the water companies appear to be their method of, or one of their methods of attacking humanity through poisoning the water. Many of you in the UK will know that last year, 17 out of 18 water companies, I believe it was 17 out of 18, was found to have forever chemicals within them. In other words, you can't get rid of it. So I don't believe that is an accident. And on the right here, we're now going into Thames Water Utilities, linking from that director, and you can see we have what appears to be a German name. Okay, Alden de Bruyne, with a date of birth 1972, the year after the World Trade Center disaster, and they were appointed in September 2024 to this company. Some of you would have seen my recent document in relation to a water treatment park in water treatment place in Fort Angus in Scotland, and I happened to see a big lorry come in with a company name on it. It was a chemical company, and it was German, and it was going into a water treatment. And of course, linked to the fraud, researching that lorry, linked to the fraud, and back to the company that I was part of, Expoor Manor Freehold Limited, which then meant it linked to the intelligence agencies, the police, NHS, the monarchy, the Russian government, the UK government, well, international governments, in fact, but they were the ones that were specifically relevant, and fraud throughout. So here we are. We have this person links to McLaren Group on the left, back into the Thames Company, and you have Catherine Lynn on the right, links to Liberty Living Finance. Now, Liberty Living companies had already featured in my research regarding Donald Trump, Pascal Najadi, and Hillary Clinton, and Space Force as well were included in that. You can go and look at those videos on my playlist. If you email me, don't forget you can email me, GaryTheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com. I'll send you my playlist of videos and the public document file so you can see all of this unfolding. They're also linked to EasyJet Airline and Airport Coordination Limited. Airport Coordination we're now looking into, and they are also fraudulent. Swift Incorporations and Jordan's and Sons. On the left, within the Thames Water Company, Christopher Davis links to I Am Foundation. And that was started in 2001. Okay, in May 2000, sorry. It was started in August 2000. You can see on the bottom right there. Changed its name in May 2001. And changed its name again after the World Trade Center disaster in May 2002. Can you see that? And then haven't changed their name again since, and dissolved in 2017. Now, I am, for those of you who know a bit about religion, this is what I am means in relation to Christianity. It was the name that God used to identify himself in the Old Testament. And it speaks of his eternal, personal nature and his self-sufficiency. Now, these people, Luciferians, have infiltrated every religion, but it appears as though they have infiltrated Judaism and Christianity. And I believe that is to make it appear as though Judaism is behind the world's problems. They've put lots of Jewish companies in there, but really they've infiltrated it. And I think what they're hoping is that that can then lead to the destruction of Israel with what we're seeing at the moment. You know, you can see how awful it is the Israeli government is, and what they're doing to the children, and it's turning the world against Israel. I suspect this is all part of the deception and planned by these very evil people running the Freemasons to destroy religion and potentially destroy humanity in the process. Completely evil, everybody. So we have another Thames Water company here, Thames Water Healthcare. Dissolved in 2019. It was started in 2001, okay, February 2001, same year as the World Trade Center disaster, and dissolved the same year as the outbreak, 2019. Fraudulent entity company, Jordans and Swift Incorporations on the left. On the right, you can see the same director links to Thames Water Overseas Limited. So not just in the UK. And they are also fraudulent, Swift Incorporations and Jordans. And on the right here, this is a very interesting company, Water Projects International Limited, linked to that same director. Water Projects International Limited. Started in 1931. That's one of the oldest water companies I've found. And that dissolved the same year as the outbreak. Could that be the start of when they started poisoning the water? Back then, we had the Pharaoh movement, was in the 1920s and 1930s. The Pharaoh movement was trying to come back in, ancient Egyptian Pharaoh, okay, who I believe have infiltrated all religions under the Luciferian banner with the Freemasons to destroy or remove all religions and potentially humanity itself. Interesting, in 1931, don't forget you had the CAPB Limited company we mentioned earlier, started in 1932, the year after. And, of course, it's a fraudulent company. On its incorporation documents, you can see it's been forged, for a start. It's been doctored. I'll zoom in just so you can see it. So it's, according to this, it has the British Insulating and General Oil Filtering Corporation Limited. Hey, but look how that's been doctored, the document. And on the bottom left, you can see Jordans and Sons Limited. But that company name, in fact, either of those, the one that they've crossed out, which is Meta Filters Electrical Limited, and the one they've written in, forged afterwards, isn't featured on this record. And they've attached that to this record. So you can see how corrupt this really is. Going into the same director, we now have a link to the lottery company, Camelot UK Lotteries. So we're all being led to believe that any excess funds goes to charities. Freemasons, shame on you. On the right here, you then have a Gingerbread, the charity for single parent families. This is very important. Remember, we're talking about children being taken from families through the care services. Started in 1946. And of course, it's not even legal. It's a fraudulent company. It says on the bottom left here that it should have an incorporation name from 1946 until 2013 as National Council for One Parent Families. But it's actually got National Council for the Unmarried Mother and Her Child. And you can see it has Jordans and Sons Limited on the incorporation document. Back into the NHS Confederation Company, right back at the beginning, we have David Stout, and he links to the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges. So we now start to have a royal connection. And they were appointed in December 2022. That's when I'm starting to make reports to the authorities regarding the fraud within my company. And they link to the National Fire Chiefs Council Limited. And then that director was appointed in April 2022 as I'm making the inquiries with the breach of fire regulations within Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited that appear to have still not been resolved, and they are allowing tenants and residents to live there with unregulated fire doors, according to the evidence I have. They had no fire certificate for 3.5 years on that building. I reported this to the relevant fire organisations. They were not even, and they haven't even done anything as far as I'm aware, and they're just trying to hide it because it all links into this fraud, you see. So they're all involved, all of these government organisations, the heads of the organisations at the very least. So let's look at the National Fire Chiefs Council Limited. So these are the, obviously, fire chiefs are the most prominent position within the fire brigade. And look at the name changes of the company names. So originally they started in 1998, the same year roughly that Douglas Dougie Smith started Fever Sex Parties, who was the special advisor for the last few prime ministers. And then they changed their name in 2004 after the World Trade Center disaster. It stayed as that name until the 2nd of March 2022. Well, that's as I'm realising there's a breach in fire regulations within Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. And I'm making all of the inquiries regarding that, as well as the fraud. So you can see they're panicking, removing the accountability and liability by changing the company name. But by doing so, they have fully exposed themselves again. On the incorporation document, you have Sevenside. Well, that links to the fraud and also links to David Cameron, I believe. On the right here, into the National Fire Chiefs Company, we have Roy Bishop. Roy Bishop links to the Emergency Services Trading Partnership L Limited Company. Here it is. And when we go into that, the address that's used is one that's used throughout the fraud. On the incorporation document, companies made simple again. Remember, these are the organisations that are supposed to protect the safety of the masses, and in particular the children. And here they are actually involved in all of the problems against humanity. On the right here, we have Roy is linked to the Fire Protection Association. And that was incorporated, you can see on the right-hand side, in July 1999, 2 years before the World Trade Center disaster. In fact, 2 years to the month before Larry Silverstein purchased the World Trade Center lease. On the incorporation document, they have Simmons and Simmons, which does feature throughout the fraud, not quite as much as some of the others, but it links to the World Trade Center disaster. And on the incorporation document, on one of the other pages, you have Lloyd's Underwriters. Okay, so insurance links, but to Lloyd's specifically there. Now remember, I acquired forged Lloyd's bank documents via Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, and that has never been finalised, the complaint in relation to that, and the police are now ignoring all evidence, irrefutable evidence that I have in relation to all of this. So are the FBI, so are NATO now, so are World Health Organization, and so are the World Economic Forum. But they did, after I sent the evidence initially to the World Economic Forum, within 3 days Klaus Schwab resigned. They then, around that time, excluded Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin from the World Economic Forum meetings, I suspect, to make them appear as though they could be saviours for the world and clear up this mess. But they're actually part of it. That was all a deliberate part of their plan, everybody. You need to understand this, so that they could then bring in full digital currency control and continue with their plan in the background to manipulate, exploit and victimize humanity and control them, as well as through the population control, but also through digital means with currency and other technology we're now seeing. Back into the National Chief Company, we have John Bonney, links to Community Action Hampshire. So now we're linking to specifically Hampshire That's very important because Deborah Fleming, who was the one that called the meeting to remove me from my company as a director for refusing to file the forged bank documents that I'd acquired, because obviously I couldn't agree to file them, we'd be committing a serious crime. She called a meeting, they removed me, she became a director. She was a former NHS chief executive in charge of a £700 billion budget and 10,000 staff for the area of Hampshire and Isle of Wight. And her husband was a former Dorset police officer. And as I've already said, they link through the Fleming family to international government fraud and child trafficking links all the way through. Anyway, here we have the Blue Lamp Trust. And you can see they're linked to Hampshire Fire and Rescue on the left. So here's the Blue Lamp Trust. On the incorporation documents, Sevenside and Blake Lapthorne, both linked to the fraud and to David Cameron. Within the Blue Lamp Company, you have Scott Chilton. He was, at the time of me initially making my inquiries with Dorset Police, the Chief Constable for Dorset Police. They then moved him from Dorset Police to Hampshire and Isle of Wight, followed by the Assistant Chief Constable, Sam Derea, who was the firearms commander for the Metropolitan Police, but also was overseeing the economic crime unit where I was reporting the fraud to within Dorset Police. They moved them both. So here is Scott Chilton. Interestingly, according to this, born in 1973. Remember, we've said about the links to the World Economic Forum and the dates of people's date of births here. And he was appointed to this company as I was exposing the fraud, 21st of June 2023. Back into the Blue Lamp on the right here, we have Fiona Dunga, and she links to Twyford School, which is featured in the fraud, and also to IBM United Kingdom, that was also featured in the fraud, and links to the World Trade Center disaster. And this company is now liquidizing. It's going into liquidation, even though it was incorporated in 1984. As I'm exposing all of this, they're obviously realizing the game is up, and it is up, everybody. Everything changes one way or another. And you can see on the left there that they are linked to the Interpath company. That already links through my previous research to David Cameron and Tony Blair as well. And it's a fraudulent company. You can see they've got the first company name here as 1975 to 1983 as IBM United Kingdom Data Processing Systems Rentals Limited, when in fact on the incorporation document it's just rentals. So that has never been registered lawfully, so it's criminal. On the left there, black into Blue Lamp, you have Nicholas Hayward, links to the Isle of Wight now Youth Trust. Remember, the evidence suggests that the Isle of Wight and Hampshire area is the child trafficking import for the UK. It appears the ports are set up linked to this fraud, and obviously it's where the connections are that I've already told you about. Isle of Wight Youth, here we are, and that was also incorporated in 2001 on the left, same year as the World Trade Center disaster. On the right, the same director links to the Royal Hotel Holdings. We have Royal connotations, and we're back in the Blue Lamps now. The Blue Lamp Company, we have Fergus Main, and look at the dates. Date of birth 1971, year before the World Economic Forum started, an address in Hampshire, and they were appointed in August 2022 as I'm really stepping up my inquiries through my company. And they link to Airwave companies. Airwaves are the police and military radio organisations linked to the police and military radios. You can go and look at my police and military radio document concerns about that, because it links to, I believe, MK Ultra, targeting of the military and police through the MK Ultra program, and it is, you'll see from that other document, linked to Pegasus, which is an Israeli spyware company involved in the infiltration of mobile communication devices. On the left here, back into the Blue Lamp, we have Lindsay Fox. And now we have a link to Hollywood via the Rank Foundation, huge movie company. And of course, we all know what's going on in Hollywood at the moment and the awful things with the music industry and what have you. This will all be tied in. I've already found connections now through to the P. Diddy stuff that's going on, linking back into this international government fraud. And you'll see from a document in a moment, all the recent information, including the Archbishop of Canterbury, links back into this same system of corruption and crime by those that should actually be helping us. So here's the Rank Foundation, and they're also, that same director is linked to Summerfield School Trust Limited. And back into Blue Lamps, we're looking at Alan Lovell, and they're connected to Interserve. Well, Interserve links to Deborah Fleming very, very quickly via the research, and Interserve, according to the research, was shutting its shops this year and had at least £2 billion going through its account. I would suggest, with the forged bank documents being produced by the banks, it will be vastly more than that. Okay, so all the figures we're being given are very likely untrue, because the banks are being allowed to forge the bank documents, and that means that our taxpayers' contributions will be paying way more than we should do, and we're actually paying for international crime and our own victimization in all of this, and particularly the children. So nobody can legally or lawfully now pay any taxes until it is safeguarded, and I believe I know what needs to happen for that if these people don't end up ending humanity. On the left here, the same person links to College of Policing, and Theresa May was the one that started up the College of Policing and the National Crime Agency and the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office. All of those are linked to this fraud, international government fraud, and through to the child trafficking. And as I exposed that, she then stepped down as a Member of Parliament. Interestingly, she became a Member of Parliament in 1997, 4 years before the World Trade Center disaster. I don't think that is a coincidence. Thanks very much, and there should be a part 3. God bless you all.